Up next, we have Shiv Pratap Singh. This is a session you wouldn't want to miss. How our speaker nearly managed to get fired managing clusters, K8s Clusters. So give it up for Shiv Pratap Singh.
This is okay. Hey everyone, am I audible? Looks like okay. So this is me before managing Kubernetes cluster, and this is how I look now, everything white. So yeah, I'm assuming all of you are basically hungry, so just give me 30 minutes, we will wrap it up, and then you can have your lunch. Okay, so yeah, this is not really I got fired, but this is like almost the situation, right? Where my manager, who is basically on the next slide, Rakesh, and I basically started Kubernetes journey together. I proposed solution, Rakesh was the one who basically approved that, and then both of us got like our CEO was very angry with us while we were managing the solution, etc. So that is where the slide comes in, how we nearly got fired while managing Kubernetes clusters. Okay, so yeah. So problems we faced, right? So we were working in a data company that was building a platform for customers on managing basically customer data, right? It was mostly a healthcare data. We were adventurous enough to start thinking that we can run Spark on Kubernetes cluster like around 2018 or something like that. And that is where we had additional thoughts that, okay, let's run Spark on Kubernetes cluster, also run workloads on Kubernetes cluster, everything on a single plane. And that is how you can basically reduce your infrastructure cost and et cetera, right? Then that comes the reality that if the job started failing and we had no idea why it is happening, what was happening, we had very less understanding around the observability, et cetera. Overall cluster optimization was very low, right? And there was not a lot of tools which can tell you like why those cluster optimization is low, why that is happening. Most of my team, SRE DevOps team, they were like overloaded with like application optimization, understanding where the traffic is coming, what is failing, etc. That's still a reality. Most of the time, SRE and DevOps folks here, they are like always overloaded with new requests coming in, automation coming in, etc. Overall cost overshoot happened because we forgot to shut down our cluster. Basically, it was a Redshift cluster, which we were running on a very high cost, and then forgot to shut that down, right? Most of the time, that is still a reality. Most of the application developers don't really know where their applications are running. And DevOps engineers don't really know what the heck application is doing, right? So there's always a disconnect between application teams, SRE DevOps teams, right? While you are building all of these, handling all of these, there is always a security compliance guy coming in over your head saying that, okay, you are not security compliant, you don't have a compliance for this, please have all of that, and especially if you are in a healthcare or billing domain, healthcare life sciences domain, right? So all of these problems which we faced while building those clusters, managing the applications, etc., right? And this is like how actually things look like, right? Debugging a application in Kubernetes cluster is how you get the migraines, right? That is where we started building open source self-hosted stack, primarily from using Grafana, Loki, etc. We have Grafana guys there, big shout out to them. They are like really helpful. You get the full control, alerting mechanism, etc. But it solves very specific problem, right? That gives you observability. You still have to figure out other 10 problems in terms of compliance, in terms of security, in terms of cluster optimization, how to interact with Kubernetes cluster, how to add the security layer on top of it, right? Then you start building, let's say, go with a paid solution, right? We went with Datadog, I think. And then you again get the maybe better, more integrated observability, but you still need to figure out all other 10 different components, right? And again, it was like way too costly to manage. Second, you need to follow too many compliances to basically have your self-hosted data going outside into Datadog or similar kind of clusters, right? That is where we learned about these 7 truths. Generally, infrastructure is complex. Running Kubernetes kind of applications are very complex, even though it feels like You are just deploying a YAML. That is the first experience you get. But once you start managing it, you get the idea like how complicated that can be. There's always an understanding gap between DevOps team, application team, what is their requirement versus what DevOps or SRE team can offer. There's always an understanding gap. There is a budget challenge which always is there. Overall, there is always a hidden cost for managing an internal tool, right? Because you need to figure out a lot of different tools in terms of compliances, upgrades, etc. Then you need to set up a team who is managing those tools. Then that becomes another internal project for you, where the teams are spending time building the dashboard, etc. Right? There's a poor ROI, which we feel in terms of existing paid solution, where you get only one aspect about the managing the system, but you don't really get rest of the thing. So you need to again build there or again do the exploration for yourself. And that is overall cluster optimization is still very poor, right? Normally that is still recent study where CNCF said that most of the Kubernetes cluster are basically 70% is where you can save the cost, right? So that is a recent study. This is what my CEO Suresh Katta said, that you came up that you only need to write a YAML file. Now this is where we are, right? So that is where we started building Nudgebee. When we moved out of our previous organization, we started building Nudgebee, which is trying to solve three problems. One is to basically reduce the time to troubleshoot a particular issue, which is troubleshooting faster. Second is reduce the overall cost, but I will extend that and say that it basically provides an optimization solution, which is more like reducing the cost, take care of compliances, take care of security, best practices, everything. And third one is to basically automate day-to-day work. You don't want to come to Nudgebee screen daily and then just do the same thing, right? What you have like better works to do, right? So you go automate that and Nudgebee will take care of it. You don't have to come to Nudgebee, right? Most of the time Nudgebee will notify you for anything which is going to happen in your cluster, and you can automate that. Next time it will be taken care of. So yeah, this is troubleshooting. I will be covering that more in the demo, right? This is like general integrations which we have currently. You can run Nudgebee basically in any Kubernetes platform. We only interact with Kubernetes APIs, so you can pretty much run anywhere. We interact with existing solution. We haven't introduced a new solution to you. We interact with existing technology which you are using. So we interact with Loki, Logstash. We interact with traces. For that, you don't have to deploy any new software. We use eBPF, which automatically generates the traces for you. We use Prometheus internally, which is pretty much standard on any of the Kubernetes solution. Integrate with day-to-day flow like ticketing, messaging system, repos. We can automatically raise a PR on your behalf from the automation perspective. There are like a lot of tooling which we have built by talking to a lot of people in terms of people told us like we face challenges on cluster upgrade, right? So we built a tool for that. We also built a tool which tell you like, okay, these are the Helm charts which are basically older version. You can upgrade them. These are the certificates which you have, which are going to expire in next 20 days, and you can basically upgrade them. There's a lot of tooling around that. Currently, we are ISO compliant, SOC 2 compliant. Recently, we became CNCF member as well, right? So yeah, this is the demo time. Any question meanwhile? Okay. So by the way, this is my live production environment. So yeah, bear with me. Okay, so when you come to Nudgebee, right, it gives you only 3 details which you need to focus on. It doesn't give bows with you a lot of matrices, data, etc. It tells you that there were like these many pod errors happened, which it has observed. These many node errors happened. Application issues have observed. These are the recommendations which are available. So it's more on the task-oriented side rather than kind of building a lot of dashboards. Gives you an insight and overall observability stack in terms of logs, errors, matrices, etc. Right? If you click any of these, you get redirected to our issues page, or more like a cluster details page, which gives you more details in terms of summary, optimizations, Kubernetes specific objects like node, application, etc., logs, traces, matrices, security, complete security observability, different tooling. You can configure SLOs. if you have existing Grafana dashboard, you can configure that. And then if you are using cluster auto scalers like Carpenter, you can configure that as well, right? Now let's say I came here into my, pod errors. We have categorized that into out of memory issues, image pullback off issues. All is like anything which is we are observing at a pod level, right? Okay, my services server went out of memory 10 hours ago, right? Now I can click here, create a ticket for my team to look into, or I can click on troubleshooting, right? That troubleshooting will basically start collecting a lot of data and then give you a single screen which you need to look into to debug a particular issue rather than going into 10 different places, right? It will give you matrices in terms of, it is happening 5 times in last 7 days, so something which we need to look into, right? What was the image it was using, how many restart which has occurred. Then it will also tell you, check if the memory allocation was sufficient and gives you an insight directly that, it was almost 107% of the limit, right? And if you click on it, it will give you a supporting data, which tells like, this was the memory utilization, this is where the spike was happening, right? Now you can click on resolve, it will open a pop-up. You can directly update your Kubernetes resources from the Nudgebee. Or if you have configured Nudgebee GitHub, you can also raise a PR saying that, this is my GitHub repo. You need to have these 2 annotations available on your workload. And Nudgebee will raise a PR on your behalf so that you can follow your normal DevOps cycle in terms of approval, rejections, etc. Right? We also look for all other workloads which were running at that particular time, right? So it will check for that node, give you other details in terms of, these were the additional workload running, and then insights around that, this workload was taking 17% more than what was the request, right? So you get the idea like what all workloads are configured, how much memory they are using, what you need to improve so that these situations don't come in the future, right? We also look into the deployment changes, tell you like, this was the recent image change which Nudgebee has observed. And then again, if you want to do a revert of those changes, you can do that. We give you log files so that if you want to check anything on the logs, you can do that as well. We also collect pod events data in terms of if you are interested in Kubernetes events, it will show you like all of those data points into a single place, and system has observed, there was a liveliness failure as well, right? We also collect the traces data. So these were like the traces or API calls which system has observed plus minus 10 minutes without any kind of tracing software, right? This is purely based on the eBPF. Similarly, it will also generate a service map saying that, this is how your application was connected to rest of the system, right? So you get the visibility at an application level. So let's say any SRE or DevOps engineer comes in, they will directly say like, this is how my application was connecting to rest of the stack in terms of dependency, right? Again, you can look into the CPU usage, description, etc. Right? So that gives you every single detail into a single page, right? Now let's say you can resolve an issue, you can create a ticket for that, but more importantly, you can automate this as well, right? You can click on automate anything which is happening on my Nudgebee namespace for out of memory issue. I normally do these steps within Nudgebee, right? What I can do is maybe create a ticket for my team to look into more details, then notify them on a dedicated Slack channel, right? That, let's say that is a core team, right? I can configure core team Slack channel that whenever out of memory issue happens, go directly to them. I want to increase my memory usage for time being till they are debugging the issue, right? Now I selected these steps. I can configure Slack saying that, go to my war room basically, right? And then you can change the template as well. I can again configure Jira, saying that, whenever this issue occurs, go to my Kanban project with the highest priority, configure the assignee name, project configuration, etc. Meanwhile, I want to scale up my memory, right? So I want to scale up my memory by 10%, but I don't want to keep increasing memory. What if this issue again occurs, right? So I want to do a upper cap. I'm adding basically 3000 MB. That is the upper cap. Now I gave this runbook a name, create a runbook. Now what will happen? Next time when this issue is going to occur, system will take all these steps on your behalf. You don't have to worry about it, right? You don't have to do the repeated steps. it is going to take all of these steps on your behalf, right? There are like more use cases of runbook. So for example, you can configure runbooks to scale down your dev or QA environment maybe every night and then scale them up again back every day in the morning to reduce your cost, assuming people don't work at that time, right? Uh, then there is a whole optimization layer where Nudgebee analyzes your current cluster, gives you a recommendation in terms of like how much saving you can do, right? For example, this is my current cost. Nudgebee will go give you right sizing recommendation, how many workloads can be right sized, PV right sizing recommendation, workloads which are not really being used so that you can save the cost, modernization in terms of like how you can change the machine types, right? Now, if we come to right sizing for more details, right, system will give me, okay, these are the workloads which can be right sized from the different perspective, right? For example, let's say my ML server, right? I have given it 1.2 core. System is saying that you have given too much, give it 0.6 core. But for the memory, it is saying, okay, you have given only 1 GB, you need to change it to 3.5 GB so that system keeps working correctly, right? And it gives you a supporting data points like, okay, these are green ones are the recommendation, blue ones are the what you have requested, and red ones is basically the limit, right? Same with the memory. Now let's say you are like okay with these recommendations. Again, you can create a ticket for your team, or you can click on this resolve icon. That will give you multiple options to solve it, right? You can deploy the fix. You can schedule a optimization. You can create a pull request as well. Now, when you schedule a auto optimization, that is where it becomes a auto optimization, right? You can give a system instruction that whenever CPU recommendation comes in, add a 15% buffer to it. For memory, let's add 20% buffer. Again, I can configure a guardrail saying that, okay, whenever the CPU threshold is less than 10%, Nudgebee should not do any changes. Or whenever it is more than 100%, again, don't do any changes. Likely it's a application bug, right? You can configure a timeline saying that, okay, I want to apply these recommendations only over the weekends. But if you leave it blank, it will automatically apply whenever those recommendations are available, right? You can also instruct it to, instead of directly applying, raise a pull request. And now once you create this auto optimization rule, system will automatically apply these recommendations whenever they are available, instead of you having to come to a screen and check what is happening, what is not happening, right? Similarly, there are like more other recommendations. For example, unused volumes. We normally forget to clean up the volumes, right? So that is where Nudgebee gives you the recommendation. Best practices, which is Kubernetes best practices. PVC right sizing, which is like how much volume we have configured versus how much actually it is being used, right? So it will give you a recommendation for that. Replica right sizing, which is how many replicas I have versus what is recommended by Nudgebee. And spot recommendation, which is what all workloads you can move into spot instances. Then there is a security aspect as well. You can look into like how many vulnerabilities you have on each of the application. You can check for the CIS compliances as well. Look into it, and then it will give you details. There are more toolings around it. For example, if you are going to do a cluster upgrade, system will tell you what all APIs are deprecated or deleted, and how they are going to impact your cluster. Similarly, it will tell you like what all certificates are configured when they are going to expire, right? If you have existing Grafana, you can also load that Grafana into Nudgebee. You can configure application-specific SLOs as well, that my application should complete in 5 seconds, and the availability should be 99%. Okay, we have a relay server where this is breaching. I can click on it, and it can show me details where the breaches are happening, right? So Nudgebee provides you a single place where you can basically get all the data instead of figuring out different tools for each of these individual solutions, right? For example, you can go to logs. It will automatically generate log groups for you that, okay, these are the issues which are happening, how many times they have occurred, what was the last occurrences. You can again do the same flow in terms of creating a ticket, click on it, it will give you a drill down when they were occurring. You can use the query builder to basically query the logs, either through directly querying it or using a builder to build those queries, right? You can go to service map, which will tell you like how overall system is basically integrated with each other. Now let's say I selected a Nudgebee namespace. This will tell me how my Nudgebee namespace is connected. Let me zoom in. Okay, right. So, okay, there is a some error happening between my services server and when it is going to RabbitMQ for some reasons, right? If I look into my collector server, that looks okay. Application looks also okay. If I click on any of these arrows, right, it will try to generate a traces for that. If those are available, it will show you like, okay, these are the API calls which are failed and because of these reasons. Okay, something with data collection, but yeah, the idea is to basically show end user that, okay, these are the traces which are covered. Similarly, if you click on traces, these are all the traces endpoint which system is collecting. You can do a filtering based on that, or you can click on it to show, see the what was the request, what was the response, what was the CPU data points at that particular time, right? More importantly, almost all this data remains within your cluster. Nudgebee doesn't pull them out into its SaaS platform. We interact with that through our agent, so that data security part basically taken care of. You can also click on there to see the matrices, etc. All the ticket which Nudgebee creates, you can see directly on the ticket section. Uh, any kind of optimization which you configure, you can see on the autopilot section or auto optimize section, right? Which also gives you like complete history in terms of like when they got executed, why they got executed, what was the change which system has done, right? So yeah, this is from the platform perspective. Do let me know your questions, thoughts, or anything. Yes, please.
Hi, Shiv. Thank you. I use a lot of, no, I'm a very Kubernetes expert, 20 years of experience. I worked in Apple, an academy as a director and things like that. So since I have a lot of experience and I started doing POC with, Cast, Sport AI, Carpenter, and lots of other open source tools also. And currently I have my own company and I'm consulting.
Nice.
So the challenge is these tools, right? Like it keep coming, but let's say Cast AI, I've recommended to one of my clients, and currently they have heavy issues because the use cases are very, very different. So I can say, the VPA, HPA are right. They were expecting VPA and HPA on the cluster, and for the client it was only HPA, and it's misbehaved, and they're supposed to save costs, but actually added up a lot of costs. So how's your platform, actually currently the challenge is the customer, basically the vendor is not agreeing, it's their problem, How do you assure, when you say cost is optimized and supporting by using these tools, but it's reverse, actually it's happening practically. How do you?
Potentially, let's say that can happen, right? Where system, so for example, if you look probably Nudgebee dev, our cost will be negative, where what the system is recommending, which is saying that you are just very under provisioned based on the workload which you are handling, right? And then in that case, system will recommend you to increase your number of node or increase the number of request or response, right? That is basically reverse of cost saving, right? But what you are trying to optimize, not really cost, at least from my perspective, right? What you normally try to optimize is how optimally your workload are running, right? That can also result in increasing the cost if they are basically under provisioned, right? But let's say a lot of time, most of the applications are over provisioned. That is where the cost saving happens, right? But if you go and check my dev cluster, you will find negative because those are under provisioned, right? So, I mean, it can happen. Now, that there can be alternate as well, that what you said, that there should be a cost saving because all the parameters were correct, but somehow still there was a like increase in cost, right? But those are like probably very specific. Ideally, we normally keep track of all the changes which we are showing. We give you a dashboard for that, why Nudgebee is doing those changes, uh, how much impact those changes are. So we give you those dashboards so that you can basically evaluate that. Control remains always in your, right? We don't go and automatically change anything, right? We ask you that what is the parameter which you are going to configure. If the recommendation comes in, you can configure your thresholds saying, okay, increase by 10%, increase by 20%, and Nudgebee will basically follow that rather than just doing everything magically. I mean, there is an option to do magically, but I probably feel that you need more control.
Okay, so we are running a bit behind schedule, so in the interest of time, we would like to wrap up there. What I would like to highlight is that Nudgebee has been kind enough to be a sponsor for this event, and they have a booth on that side of the hall. I urge each and every one of you to pay the booth a visit. We have all of our speakers in various booths, so they would love to interact you one-on-one, understand your use cases, and solve your problems. So with that, please give a huge round of applause
Thank you,
to
everyone.
Shiv.
Thank you, everyone.
And there's a small token of our appreciation from our side as well.
Yeah, I was waiting for this.
Of course, of course.